Kitchen Nightmares has been on the air for a collective 8 years with 102 total episodes. It's featured some of the most stubborn, delusional restaurant owners on earth. But at the end of every Kitchen Nightmares episode, there's usually a come to Jesus moment where the owner realizes that Gordon was right and accepts the changes. Of course, many times it turns out that they didn't stick with the changes for very long after the filming completed. Some of the owners from the show barely hid their disdain for Gordon and wouldn't even pretend to like his changes, if only for the sake of coming across in a good light on TV. But in every single episode, they got through the taping and had some kind of relaunch service. Except for this one. This is the most infamous, insane episode of Kitchen Nightmares by a long shot. I've covered many hated restaurants from the show, but none has generated anywhere near the level of animosity and disdain that this one has. This is the story of Amy's Baking Company. I found out more about this restaurant than any other restaurant I've done a video about. There were allegations of sexual assault, a Dr. Phil appearance, a video of an alleged knife attack, criminal records, claims of hacking, t-shirt hustles, and of course, plenty of online tantrum throwing. And I'm even going to reveal what started the entire shitstorm before they ever met Gordon Ramsay. So let's find out what happened in the episode and if they were able to keep their doors open afterwards. But very quick before that, I need to say that everything I say in this video is my personal opinion, and I am not encouraging anyone to harass or in any way harm or make any kind of contact with anyone talked about or mentioned in this video. This video is only for entertainment purposes. That goes for all of my videos, but I think I need to specifically say it in this one. Please don't harass anyone. It doesn't solve anything, can potentially be illegal, and it just really isn't worth your time and energy. Anyways, with that out of the way, Amy's Baking Company is an Italian restaurant slash bakery slash pizza place located in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the focus of Season 5, Episode 16 of Kitchen Nightmares. Amy, the owner and head chef, explains that she always had a passion for cooking ever since she was young, and that in 2006, her husband Sammy spent $1 million in order to open the restaurant for her. For the first 2 minutes of the episode, Sammy and Amy seem like nice, normal people who just want to run a restaurant. But then Amy says, approximately 2 years ago, these reviewers and these bloggers decided to make up lies and say that they ate the food and it was disgusting. And we lost a tremendous amount of business because of it. And there's also a clip of her saying, they're just fucking haters. I'm assuming she was talking about her customers there. Okay, not off to a great start. We also see a few clips of diners in the restaurant complaining about the food, and one of the waiters claims that there are a lot of problems with the food, but the owner Amy doesn't realize it. Another server claims that if someone complains about the food to Sammy, he argues with them and tells them that they don't know what the food is supposed to taste like. Sammy says in a cutaway, if anyone tell me that my wife's food is not good, I just tell them to leave the restaurant, I don't want them, and don't come back. And then we see a clip of Sammy rudely telling an elderly woman not to come back as she walks out the door. We then see a clip of Amy in the kitchen angrily yelling, I will tell them to fuck off if my husband doesn't. And then a few seconds later, we see a clip of Amy preparing a pizza as she says, I hope he eats it and I just made it really spicy for him. I hope it hurts him. Okay, we are 3 minutes into this episode, and not only do the owners apparently scream at customers and kick them out if they complain, but the head chef owner just admitted on camera to making a customer's pizza really spicy, apparently to try and hurt him. In my personal opinion, she's trying to poison him for not liking her food. That's what kind of shit we're in for. And we also see a lot of Amy and Sammy yelling at each other and just generally being really pissed off. In my personal opinion, Sammy and Amy come across as really angry, miserable people. Normally at this point, the show would cut to Gordon showing up, but instead we see text on screen that says, a day before Chef Ramsay arrives. There's more? Here we get a good look at how disorganized the whole restaurant is during a normal service. Food is taking too long to come out, customers are getting mad, and what is going out is getting sent back for not being cooked properly. One customer sends back a pizza because it wasn't cooked enough, and Sammy tells Amy to throw it back in the oven. Amy responds, sure, I'll burn it for them. The food we're making is going straight to the trash, and there are starving people that could be eating it, but instead these people decide that they're going to come with my life. But apparently those customers got up and left before the pizza could be cooked some more, and other customers are complaining about waiting over an hour. One customer asks where his food is, and Sammy says, it's coming now, now. And the customer responds, you keep saying that, you've been saying that for an hour. And Amy mockingly says from the kitchen, look at him, he's like, where's my pizza? And I guess the customer heard that because he responds, really? Sammy then goes back over to the man, and in a rage he says, "You have a pizza, it's coming. You want to wait, you wait. You don't want, hey, what did you have? And you fuck off from here. Do you understand? Do you understand?" The customer is dumbfounded and says, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And Sammy explodes into an unintelligible tirade of get outs and fuck yous. He then says, "Pay and go." And the customer says back angrily, "Pay for what? I didn't have anything." The customer and the person he was dining with then get up and head for the door, and Sammy runs in front of them and physically blocks them from leaving. He says, "You pay, you don't go out." And then he starts wildly screaming and waving his arms at the customers in a really threatening manner, like he's going to fight them. At one point he even shoves one of the customers, despite the fact that Sammy looks like he's about 100 years old and the other guy is a whole 12 inches taller than him. He keeps demanding money and refuses to let them leave, and again, the customer earlier claimed that they didn't even get any food, so they don't owe any money. Amy then runs over, equally erratic, and says she's calling the police, but Sammy stops her and they eventually let the customers leave. As they're walking out the door, Amy yells after them, "You are a little pansy, get out of here. Don't you ever come back here. You little weenie, keep walking." All of the customers in the dining room are watching this insane exchange and probably realizing what a mistake they made in coming there. Amy then walks back into the restaurant and says to the whole room, "You guys, I make excellent food." And we see one of the customers laugh. Amy then says, "You motherfuckers, you all think that you can come in here and say these things? Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. I've never seen anything like this before." Again, this is all before Gordon has even showed up. Gordon finally does show up, and Sammy greets him with a big smile, which is totally different from what we just saw. The narrator says that Gordon knows very little about the incident from the previous night. The first thing Gordon points out is the cake display thing that does look pretty good. Amy comes out from the kitchen, introduces herself, and explains that she's responsible for it. He also points out that the restaurant is very nice. Amy and Sammy then start explaining that Amy's the head chef, and then it quickly devolves into a soapbox about how her and Sammy have to stand up to all the online bullies that they seem to think are plotting against them. At this point, Gordon looks a bit taken aback, and he asks if they can catch up on that later and instead go look at the kitchen, since Sammy was insistent that Gordon needs to see it. Gordon walks into the kitchen and is shocked by how clean everything is, which is in stark contrast to what we usually see on the show. The floors are clean, the fridge is clean with food properly separated, labels on everything. He says that it's like a surgery operating room. After seeing the clean kitchen, he sits down with Amy and Sammy. Amy tells Gordon that they've been married for 10 years, and Amy blurts out that they got married only 5 months after first meeting. She also says that she prayed to God to send her someone, and he sent Sammy. She also claims that Sammy was a player in Vegas, and that even Hugh Hefner didn't have as beautiful of women as we did. But after they met, he gave it up to only be with Amy, which is all extremely believable. Based on his expressions, it seems like Gordon thinks everything Amy is saying is kind of insane, but he tries one of her cakes and says it's really good. Amy and Sammy also tell Gordon that if either of them get sick, they completely close the restaurant, and they claim it's because they can't find anyone qualified to do the job. Amy tells Gordon they're dirty, they're lazy, and Gordon asks, "How many people have you been through?" And Amy says, "A few hundred." Gordon is shocked by that number, and my guess is he's probably thinking that there's no way that none of those people were qualified. But next he asks what's wrong with the restaurant, and Amy immediately launches back into ranting about the online bullies and claims that they are lying about her restaurant. Amy explains that the whole alleged bullying campaign started when a food critic came in and accused them of serving frozen pizza. Afterwards, she claims he wrote a negative review, and Amy decided to respond to him. Gordon asks, "Why?" And Amy says, "I told him I thought he was a loser. He was a moron. He insulted me first and I attacked back." In a cutaway, she says, "I'm not going to let anyone bully me, bully my husband. That's a joke." It baffles me when businesses do stuff like this. If someone leaves you a negative review, the only two good options are to not respond and do better next time, or very politely apologize. Don't tell them that they're wrong or anything, just try to make it right somehow. If you show any kind of hostility or unprofessionalism towards them, you look like a child who got their feelings hurt. And in the majority of situations, the general public will form negative opinions about you. And some of them will see how thin your skin is and be incentivized to push your buttons even more, which again, I don't condone. Amy did pretty much the worst possible thing in my opinion. Not only did she attack the reviewer over what may have been completely genuine criticism, but she did so the same way a damn middle schooler would, by calling him a loser. I have no idea if Amy's claims about a dedicated effort to bully her online is true or not, but it's possible that at least some of the hate is due to that. But that's what happens when you insult people with childish insults because they didn't like your food. It baffles me how business owners don't understand this simple concept. The only thing that Amy might be able to do now is to sincerely apologize, commit to being more professional, and promise to never behave that way again. But based on her comments, it sounds like she has some, in my opinion, delusions about her being a hero who's standing up for justice or something. So it seems like she's unlikely to take my advice. Amy tells Gordon that she needs him to give his expert opinion on her food so that the public will believe him over the quote online bullies. Gordon says, "Amy, if all of your food is as good as this dessert, trust me, there's something not quite right here." The whole time that Gordon is interacting with Amy, he seems very off-put and like he doesn't know what to make of her. Amy's personality is like that of someone that just drank 3 Red Bulls, 2 cups of coffee, and a little bit of meth for good measure. In a cutaway, she also explains that she has 3 cats and she can speak feline. She then proceeds to meow like a cat, which isn't insane at all. Gordon tells them, "Meeting you two for the first time, you are both fucking nuts." And they laugh in response. And with the introductions out of the way, Gordon decides to sample the rest of the menu. He sits down and meets with one of the 2 waiters who are both young girls and is shocked when she tells him that she doesn't make tips. Instead, she gets paid hourly. Gordon asks her, "So where did the tips go?" And she says, "The owner." And he doesn't look happy to hear that. Gordon calls Sammy over, and after he confirms that Sammy does take their tips, Gordon says, "Sammy, you cannot take servers' tips." And Sammy responds, "Then bring me the people who's going to do their job and I don't have to interfere. They can take the whole tips for them. Do you see I already took 3 orders by myself and sent them already to the..." And Gordon responds, "You're the owner." But Sammy won't hear it, and so he decides to leave it alone for the moment. Even if the servers were doing a bad job, I still don't think it's right to take their tips. You have the option to discipline them or fire them. In my opinion, taking the tips is kind of like defrauding the customer. The customer is giving the tip to the server, not the restaurant. They are giving it with the belief that it's going to the server, and they probably wouldn't be giving it if they knew that it was going to the owners instead. At the least, they should explain to the customers who leave tips that their tips are going to Amy and Sammy, not the girl who waited on them. Gordon orders several dishes, and while he's waiting, he sees Sammy using the POS system, and it appears like the server is having to help him do it, which seems to contradict what Sammy said earlier about them being useless and about him being the one to do everything. Gordon asks Sammy if the server can use the POS system, and he says, "No, she doesn't know yet. Nobody, I'm the only one who use it." And Gordon says, "But the quicker you teach, the quicker you can take a back seat." And Sammy says, "I will teach her when it come the time. I will teach her." And Gordon calls the server over and asks her directly in front of Sammy, "Miranda, have you ever worked on a POS system?" And she says, "Yes, at every job that I've worked at." Gordon then says, "She doesn't need training, she knows how to do it." Sammy looks absolutely thrilled during this entire interaction, but just when it was getting interesting, Gordon's pizza arrives. He tries it and says that it's too sweet, I assume he means the dough, and that the dough is raw. He calls Sammy over and tells him his complaints, and Sammy says that normally people love that pizza. Gordon pushes back and says that it is, in fact, too sweet and raw. Sammy then takes the pizza back to the kitchen, but when Amy asks what's wrong, Sammy says, "Nothing." I assume he did this to try and keep her from flying into a rage. Sammy returns to Gordon's table and admits to him that he didn't even tell her about the pizza because he doesn't want her to get nervous. Gordon is shocked by that, but instead of arguing further, he mentions that he's been waiting for 75 minutes and only gotten an undercooked pizza. So even with a VIP customer like Gordon Ramsay, the kitchen still isn't able to get food out any faster. But next, Gordon's blue ribbon burger arrives at the table, and it's a steak burger with mushrooms, garlic aioli, white truffle oil, blue cheese, and bacon. He complains that the bun is soggy with what looks like butter. I guess they turned it into garlic bread or something. And he also says that the patty is not medium rare. I can see that it has some pink on it, so I'm assuming it's undercooked. In the interest of being objective, I'm going to throw them a bone here even though they don't deserve it so far. It doesn't look all that bad to me. It looks a lot like the kind of thing that you would get at a lot of sit-down restaurant chains around the US. I mean, sure, I can't taste it and it probably wouldn't win any awards, but it would probably get a pass from most people in my opinion. But it does let out a whole lot of juice when he bites down into it. Gordon calls it overcomplicated, unnecessary, and says, "That is one burger." Next, he gets the red pepper ravioli. He asks the waiter to check on his salmon burger. What the fuck is a salmon burger? He asks the waiter to check on his salmon burger as well, but when the waiter asks Amy about it, she gets snapped at. Amy says in a very condescending tone, "It's on its way, Miranda. You don't need to keep reminding us. We know, okay?" The waiter tries to explain that she was asked to check on it, but Amy won't hear it. Gordon tries the ravioli and says, "A mess." That has to be one of the most confused ravioli dishes I've ever seen and tasted in my entire life. And I would agree with him because Gordon describes it as sweet and spicy ravioli with bacon and sweet corn topped with cilantro. And just to make it that little bit better, Sammy confirms that the raviolis are frozen. Next, he tries the salmon burger, which apparently isn't a fillet of salmon. It's like a crab cake, but with salmon. He tries it and says that it's overcooked and not good. He then gets up and walks over to the counter to talk to Amy directly. He tells her that he's not happy with the meal, and she calmly asks what he didn't like. He tells her that there were several things, but that he wants to get changed, see how the business runs during a normal service, and then they can discuss the problems later. Amy and Sammy both say okay, and they're both totally calm and even courteous. When Gordon walks out the door, Sammy and Amy both go into the freezer together, I assume so that the staff doesn't hear, and Amy starts saying that she's concerned about Gordon's opinion, and Sammy encourages her and tells her to just do what she normally does. And next it's time for the part of the show where Gordon watches a typical dinner service. He watches them prepare for the service and asks Amy who does what. Amy says that one of her employees does the salads and she does the pizzas. And then she adds that she has people tell her that it's the best pizza they've ever had. Gordon tells her that his pizza from earlier was undercooked and asks why Sammy was unable to tell her about the undercooked pizza. She responds, still pretty calmly, that she doesn't think the pizza was undercooked, and she says that she checked it when it came out and it was crispy on the bottom. He then moves on to the burger and asks her who came up with the idea for it. She tells him that she did, and he says, "Because there's certain things that don't go together, and that's 4 of them." In a cutaway, Amy says, "Chef Ramsay is standing there riding my ass about white truffle oil and garlic aioli, oh my god. Like he's never heard of any flavor profile in the world, it's disgusting." And she tries to do a really bad mocking British accent here. Amy tells Gordon that she's never had any problem with that burger, and he responds that it's because her husband won't even tell her about it. He also complains about the salmon burger, but Amy again says that the customers like it, and she seems to be getting increasingly frustrated. He then picks up the frozen ravioli and says, "Do you know how you can make these better?" And she says, "Yes, I can make them from scratch." And he says, "No, take them off." And Amy starts ranting and talking really fast, and Gordon tries to explain what he means, but she's talking over him at 100 miles a minute and getting really agitated, so he can't get a word in. One thing that just hit me is how patient Gordon is being in this episode so far. In some other episodes, he screams and yells at the owners right off the bat, but here it seems like he's just calmly explaining what they need to change, not that it seems to be helping any. He tells Amy, "These are store-bought crap frozen ravioli," and Amy argues back, "They're not crap and they're delicious." And then adding, "People usually love it. I've never had a problem with it," but Gordon says, "People usually love it." And she says, "Yes, real customers, not haters." Gordon takes the frozen ravioli and walks into the dining room, and as he's leaving, she says, "Raviolis that are in the freezer, oh my god, sacrilegious." I know this is a trope on this show, but yet again, we have someone that invited a Michelin-starred chef into their restaurant and then got mad when they didn't like frozen food. This is someone that spent his whole life learning how to make the best food and restaurant possible, and you are upset that he didn't like the fact that you bought something from the grocery store, heated it up, and sold it to someone. It's kind of like getting mad at Leonardo da Vinci for not liking your finger painting. Anyways, Gordon goes into the dining room with the quote frozen crap ravioli and announces to the customers that it's frozen and store-bought. He asks them if they are okay with him 86ing it, and surprisingly no one jumps up to beg him to leave it on the menu. He turns to Sammy and says, "So we'll 86 ravioli. I have too much respect for your customers to bullshit them. Now, will you tell your wife or shall I?" Sammy says that he will tell her. Sammy walks back into the kitchen and says, "Okay, listen, no more raviolis for today." And Amy says in a very agitated tone, "No more raviolis and no more hamburgers and no more salmon burgers. People can only have cakes tonight." And Gordon makes this face. Then when one of the servers is picking up a dish from the kitchen, Amy says, "4B. No, 5B. And the server asks, "Are you sure?" And Amy gets mad and says, "You don't need to question me, Katie. You can go home right now." The server apologizes, but Amy walks over to Sammy and tells him to send her home. She then goes back into the kitchen and says, "What a little shit." Then Gordon notices that someone gave one of the waiters a $10 tip, and he says to Sammy, "Wow, $10 tip, that's nice. For you?" And Sammy says, "Of course, yeah, why not?" And Gordon says, "Do you think the girls deserve some tips tonight?" And Sammy says, no, they get hourly. And Gordon responds, and do you think if I went and asked every customer when they leave a tip that it goes straight to the owner and not to the server, do you think they'd be astounded? Let me ask that table right there. He then turns to the customer who left that tip and says, sir, the tip that you left the young lady server, the owner takes the tips. And the customer says, that's horrible. But Sammy tries to cut in and says, no. Okay. And for, I think, the first time since the episode started, Gordon gets genuinely pissed off and says, don't fuck with me. Sammy shoots back, yeah, I will fuck with you. Who the fuck you think you are? That's quite a lot of fucking going on. Amy apparently overheard and says from the kitchen, oh my god, Sammy's going to hurt him. I'd like to point out that Gordon looks to be a full foot taller than Sammy and several decades younger. I'm sure he's trembling in fear. Gordon says, I'm fed up and getting sick and tired of your bullshit. And Sammy says, don't speak to me like a villain. And Gordon says, well then fucking answer my question. And Sammy says, I am the gangster, not you. Come on. And Gordon repeats, well then fucking answer my question. Tell the customers they're gonna get their tips. But Sammy refuses and says, no, they don't. Gordon says, they should be told that you're taking them because these servers deserve them. Sammy says back, you want to speak with me? You want to fuck with me? I will fuck with you. And Gordon says back hilariously, I don't want to fuck with you. Amy then decides she's had enough and tells everyone that they're closing the kitchen. She goes over to the server that she got mad at earlier and says, I think Katie, you can go for sure. So Katie starts to head towards the door, but then Amy snaps at her and says, I'm talking to you, Katie. Katie says, okay. And Amy gets even more mad and says, Katie, listen to me when I'm speaking to you. Do not walk away from me. You don't work here anymore, okay? And the server, Katie, starts crying, and then Sammy starts arguing with Amy to not fire her, and the server starts telling Amy she wasn't doing anything wrong, and Amy's arguing back saying she's fired. Everyone is talking over each other, and it's utter chaos. This is the face of a man who knows he's made a serious mistake. Finally, the server says she's quitting, and Amy says in a cutaway, she doesn't work here anymore. She's a poisonous little viper, and I don't allow people that have an attitude in my restaurant. What does she know? Who the hell is she? She's gone, that's who she is. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. All of which is a very mature and reasonable reaction to the situation. Next we see Gordon, Amy, and Sammy sitting down together at a table. Gordon says to them, believe it or not, my intentions are good. And Amy starts shaking her head no. He says, you're shaking your head already. But she says, I'm listening. He asks her why she can't take criticism, and Sammy starts telling her that it's okay and she doesn't have to cry, and she gets mad, and both of them erupt into another huge argument where they're talking over each other and not hearing a word that the other is saying. Gordon is just sitting here like this. After a minute or so of that, Amy tells Gordon that the food is good and that they haven't had any complaints. And Gordon reiterates that complaints don't even make it back to her because no one tells her. He also points out that the cakes are really good, but at the same time, they're serving frozen ravioli. Finally, he asks Amy and Sammy to be open-minded the next day, and Amy says that she'll try, but she won't make any promises. Gordon says, all you're getting from me is the truth. Right now, that's what you need. Good night. And with that, he leaves. The next day he shows up and the narrator says he has a plan. But upon reaching the restaurant, the doors are locked and no one is inside. Instead, he goes to meet with some former employees to hear what they have to say. The two former employees recount their experiences, and it's pretty much exactly what we've already seen, except that one of them claims that Sammy made him wash his car. Next, Gordon heads back over to the restaurant, which is now open, and greets Amy and Sammy. They tell Gordon that they want to clarify a few things so there's no animosity, so they sit down together to have a chat. Amy brings up the conversation that they had yesterday and the fact that she was offended by what he said, and they essentially restart their argument from yesterday all over again. Gordon tries to explain to Amy where she's going wrong, but she just keeps talking over him at 100 miles a minute. After a few minutes of completely pointless arguing that didn't go anywhere, Gordon looks at Amy and says, I think you're too far gone. And Amy says, okay, then let's end the show. You think I'm too far gone? There's no hope. Yalla yalla, it's Christmas. Let's go home. Gordon responds by saying, I can't help people that can't help themselves and cannot ever take 1 ounce of criticism. And if you're not willing to change, I'm not going to butt heads, argue, scream, whatever you want to say, but this is not normal. And it's not normal for a restaurant to go through that many staff. It's not normal for a kitchen that small to have 65 items on the menu. And it's not normal for this level of animosity that you've built inside this restaurant and outside. You have the right to run the business the way you want to run your business. I have the right to do the right thing. And the right thing for me is to get out of here. Good luck. And with that mic drop, he walks away. Sammy then says to Amy, It's good, it's what you wanted. And Amy says, yeah, of course that's what I wanted. Participate in this bullshit. Over the course of Kitchen Nightmares, there have been many contentious owners who seemed like they would never change, and some of them didn't. And there have been several times when Gordon threatened to leave a restaurant because the owner just wouldn't listen. But every single time, they got through the taping of the show and pulled off some kind of relaunch service. Except for this one. This is the only episode where he walked away. Next, we see clips of Kitchen Nightmares employees taking down all the various cameras and gear they had set up to record. In a cutaway, Amy says, "We don't need his help." Maybe he knows that, and now he's gone. He walked away. He'll go on with his life. Sammy and I will go on with our life. And that is the end of the episode. Good God. On this earth, there are people that you just can't reason with at any level. People that no matter what you say or do, they will never change their mind. I mean, hell, there's a bunch of people who think the damn earth is flat in 2024. In my humble opinion, I think Amy is one of those people. One of those people that can't be reasoned with, not a flat earther. Part of me is honestly a little bit disappointed because I wanted to see the rest of the story play out, but on the other hand, it probably would have been a complete waste of time. But the million-dollar question is Amy's baking company still open today in 2024? Let's now take a look at the absolutely colossal fallout from Amy's Baking Company. The Amy's Baking Company episode of Kitchen Nightmares was the season finale for season 6, and it got such a strong reception online that for the first episode of season 7, they actually did a kind of recap episode where they included some unseen footage from the original filming, and they also sent camera crews over to Amy's to get an interview with the owners. They also showed the submission video that Amy's Baking Company provided to get on the show, and Gordon claims that they asked me to come and help them. The follow-up episode is 90% recap, but in one notable extra piece of footage they showed, you can see Gordon pulling what is apparently pre-packaged, pre-made gnocchi out of the fridge. In the original episode, it was made clear that at least the ravioli was frozen, and Gordon did refer to it as store-bought at one point, but we didn't see the actual store packaging that it came in like we can here. The recap episode also emphasizes the absolute onslaught of people shitting on Amy and Sammy online, and the way they appeared to respond to it in the same way they responded on the show. They also show a newly shot interview with Amy and Sammy. They send in Anna Garcia to do the interview, probably to avoid a fist fight. Anna shows up to the restaurant, and after explaining that she's with Kitchen Nightmares and asking for permission to come inside, Sammy agrees and lets them in. She then greets Amy, who is very cordial and polite, and asks Amy if she has a minute to give viewers an update on their business. Amy smiles and simply says, no. But Sammy starts talking to her instead and says that this time he wants money because of how well the episode of Kitchen Nightmares did. And he also says, and Gordon Ramsay tried to bury me alive. Who he wants? I will bury him first and bury your Kitchen Nightmares also because you did it on purpose. You set me up. And his tirade continues with him claiming unfairness and cursing Gordon Ramsay. And he also says, who is he? He has no balls. He's jealous of my balls. Motherfucker, this is what he is. Amy then talks to Anna and says, we were made to look like the most psychotic, lunatic people in the universe. And after watching Kitchen Nightmares, I see all the crazy, but I don't see any of the good. I know the people that came here were Yelpers because I have proof of it. They were on Yelp talking about it after they were filming and before they were coming here. This is not stuff that I've invented. I'm not delusional. I'm not crazy. Yes, we are passionate. Yes, we are wild. If I came after you, you would probably stand up too. If I came after anybody else, you would defend yourself, wouldn't you? If you have a family, wouldn't you defend it? Has it been stressful? Yes, it's been very stressful. We've had people walk through my doors, come casually over here like this, walk over, look at the display case, keep going like this, and then leave. And then my waitress comes up to me. Now we have waitresses because we had to change our whole procedure because the whole universe thought that my husband was stealing the tips. So we tried something new. I took all of the negative things that Gordon Ramsay said and I tried to improve on it. That's why I had him come here. People come here to try and set us up because they think it's funny because they have a hard-on for Gordon Ramsay. There was one person, he left on this plate and I have it in my office and I have the surveillance camera proof of it. He puts a giant rubber cockroach on the plate and left it there. Left without buying a cake and thought that that was funny. We are dealing with that daily. It's not going to work here. We stood up to Gordon Ramsay. We're going to stand up to the world because we don't go down without a fight. We have to show the world and every single business owner out there that you have to stand up. You cannot let anyone shake you down. We have a voice, he has a voice, and it's up to us to stay strong and to show our true product and what we really have to offer here at Amy's Baking Company. She blurted out that entire spiel practically in a single breath. Amy seems to have some kind of misconception about Yelp. She makes similar claims on numerous other occasions, and she seems to not realize that Yelpers are just normal people. Anyone can write a review on Yelp. The people that she's feuding with and has so much hatred for is not a shady cabal run by people who are out to get her, it's the general public. Also, in regards to the tips, I already explained this, but Sammy himself confirmed in the episode that he was taking the tips. So it's not really a question, in my opinion, of whether they were being taken or not. You could debate about whether it's right to take them since they paid the servers an hourly wage. I would argue that it's still not right because, again, you are, in my opinion, lying to the customer. The customer believes that they are giving the money to the server, not the business owner. If you want to pay hourly only, then just refuse all customer tips, or at the minimum, have the server clearly tell them where the money is going. I want to quickly mention something else here that I wasn't sure where else to put. It turns out that according to Radar Online, IB Times, and InBradyLaw.com, a legal contract from Amy's baking company was leaked to the press. Specifically, it's a legal contract that all new employees have to sign when agreeing to work there. InBradyLaw.com, which looks to be a website for a law firm in Kansas that deals with protecting employees' rights, said, after the story created by the show, online petitions sprouted up asking the Department of Labor to investigate claims regarding stolen tips. A spokesperson for the DOL says that the Buzzaglos' justification about paying minimum wage does not hold up. It goes on to say, the contract, which Amy and Sammy require all new employees to sign, says that employees are obligated to work holidays and weekends, no exception. Anyone who fails to show up faces a $250 penalty. The Buzzaglos also require the new employees to sign an agreement stating that all tips are property of the restaurant and that they agree to waive all claims to such money. Finally, and most bizarrely, the two have inserted a provision which says that because of the hard work exerted in training employees, anyone who is either fired or quits Amy's baking company will not be allowed to work for any competitor within a 50-mile radius for 1 year. Labor law attorneys say many, if not most, of the provisions of the new contract are unenforceable and represent clear breaches of widely understood employment law. Where Amy's baking company goes from here is uncertain, but chances are it will be to court. Yeah, I'm no lawyer, but you can't just put anything in a contract and force someone to do it because they signed it. You can't make someone sign a contract saying they'll be your literal slave and take away all their rights or something. The host then asks Amy how her business has been affected, and Amy complains that they have been getting massive amounts of hate online and in person. And she says that people come in to gawk at them, but then end up trying the food and say that it's amazing, which isn't really a bad thing at all. I mean, for one, you made money, and two, if everyone comes in and tries the food and loves it, eventually people will realize that Kitchen Nightmares got it wrong. In my personal opinion, I don't really believe that people are genuinely liking the food, of course, but I don't really get what she's complaining about here. The host then asks her if she's doing good business and points out that she couldn't find anyone saying that the place is ever packed. And Amy responds that she's open right now, but she can't have normal business because of them. And yeah, there doesn't appear to be a single diner in the restaurant. Of course, I should point out that it appeared empty before when the camera crew showed up, so I don't think that the Kitchen Nightmares film crew scared off their customers. Anna also asks the owners if their ravioli is still frozen, and they proudly say that yes, it's still frozen and it's great. Amy also refers to someone online that offended her as a, quote, pale-faced pansy-ass willow, which is one of the weirdest insults that I've ever heard. She also says during the interview, I'm sorry, I would love to be nothing but a lady and control my language and not have a severe case of Tourette's syndrome, but this is what's happened to me because of the pressure. Now, I don't know if she was saying that she literally has Tourette's or if she was just using that as a way to describe herself. I looked up typical symptoms of Tourette's, but since I am not a medical professional, I'll refrain from speculating on what medical condition she may or may not have. Toward the end of the interview, Amy looks at the camera and asks Gordon to put the truth out and give them a chance, but Sammy cuts her off and they start yelling over each other again, and the host just looks at the cameraman as if asking, do we need to leave? The whole interview can be summarized as them throwing insults at Gordon, claiming they were set up and treated unfairly, and trying to paint themselves as underdogs who are fighting against the tyranny of Kitchen Nightmares. Amy and Sammy were both confident that they would survive after going on the show and that they didn't need Gordon's help. So what happened next? Let's look at a timeline of what happened after the show. May 10th, 2013. The episode airs on TV. Absolute pandemonium ensues as everyone seems to want to troll Amy either online or in person at the bakery. Again, I'm not condoning that. May 15th, 2013. Only 5 days after the airing of the episode, some not very flattering information comes to light about Amy and Sammy. They both have criminal records. According to this IB Times article, But in addition to not reacting well to criticism, it seems Amy of Amy's Baking Company has been in trouble with the law. While Sammy claims to be a mobster, his wife served 14 months in jail while paying $36,294.95 in restitution for bank fraud, according to the court documents filed in the United States District Court in Arizona. On November 6, 2003, Ms. Buzaglo entered into a plea agreement with the government in which she pled guilty to one count of misuse of a social security number, a Class D felony offense. The criminal conduct occurred on August 16, 2001. Specifically, Ms. Buzaglo pled guilty to submitting an application for a line of credit with M&I Bank using the social security number of another person. Amy was arrested on October 11, 2002. The court documents note that Amy, following her conviction, had turned her life around. And apparently Amy was not alone. According to this USA Today article and this New York Post article, Sammy also has a criminal record and is potentially risking deportation because of that. Sammy is apparently not a US citizen. He's a citizen of here. I apologize. You know how YouTube censorship can be less like a scalpel and more like a wrecking ball, and there are very controversial world events going on in this area as we speak. Anyways, let's just say that he's from here. And according to this New York Post article, now the Arizona Republic is reporting that Sammy Buzaglo is attending immigration hearings that could revoke his residency status after he did not disclose information to immigration authorities. According to the paper, the information revolves around documents that show he's banned from France and Germany and has a history of drug and extortion charges. The deportation process has been going on for 2 years and has nothing to do with the couple's appearance on Kitchen Nightmares, said Scottsdale immigration lawyer David Asser. That is quite an unfortunate name. By the way, that Arizona Republic article is no longer available, but other news sites corroborated at least the base facts, so I'm confident that it's accurate. One thing I want to mention is that this article from AZ Central says that Sam had served prison time on drug and intimidation charges overseas and had been banned from France and Germany. The New York Post said that Sammy was charged with extortion, not intimidation, which is similar but not exactly the same. But either way, it looks like authorities were reconsidering his stay in the United States because of that. Around this time, Amy and Sammy also started a sort of PR campaign. They started doing news interviews, hired a PR firm, and announced a grand reopening for May 21st. They also planned to do a news conference at the grand opening. They went on ABC 15 Arizona, and they went on My 103.9 Phoenix. On ABC 15, they claimed that their social media accounts were hacked and that the mean comments from the past were from them, but these more recent ones were not. They also claimed that they filed paperwork with the FBI and police regarding the alleged hack.
Viewers wanted to be heard, and heated comments filled the internet. But what happened next was the restaurant's own online response. That is a classic what not to do, and one they say they didn't do.
We learned from our original experience not to say negative things anymore on the web. We've learned our lesson.
They're referring to their social media reaction years ago to an unfavorable review. Despite the similarities, this time they say it wasn't them.
So who are those from?
We don't know. I can tell you that I have filed all of the appropriate paperwork. My accounts were hacked and they are still to this day currently being hacked.
She says she's contacted the police and the FBI.
I don't think the FBI handles that sort of thing.
Do you understand why it's hard for people to believe that?
Of course, I understand why it's hard for them to believe that, but we're capable of saying strong things and defending ourselves. I'm not going to say we're not capable of saying those things, but we didn't say those things.
Amy, I want to believe you, but it seems like this is how a post would be in the past and this is how it is now, and it looks the same to me.
The way that the show was edited also looks like that. It looks like we are those people that if you come here and you don't like the food, we're going to attack you and scream at you and bully you and write things against you, and it's not true.
The host seemed unconvinced.
My restaurant was full of the people that I have been afraid of for the last 3 years that have been threatening to kill my husband and I. They were allowed in our restaurant that night, posing as actual diners.
At a Sunday job fair, they're now offering a more customary $5 an hour plus tips, hoping to staff their re-grand opening this week.
We welcome the people that doubt us.
What lessons have you learned?
You know, our behavior that night, it was not right. We don't make excuses for our behavior by any means. I wish I could go back and change it. I don't want the world to know me as crazy or the names that they've been calling me at all. That's not who I am. They saw me at my worst as a cornered person who felt like I was fighting the entire world. This is what everybody saw. That was my meltdown.
Okay, a PR news campaign might not be a bad plan, but there was a small problem. They signed an NDA, or non-disclosure agreement, when they went on Kitchen Nightmares, and apparently they aren't allowed to do news interviews without the prior approval of Fox. Whoops. Fox sent them a friendly reminder. Here's what the actual legal notice from Fox said, according to CBS. If you speak about the show without upper grounds and Fox's prior approval, and if you disparage the show, its hosts, or its producers, you will breach your obligations under paragraph 10 of your personal release and paragraph 14 of your participant agreement. They subsequently canceled the press conference, and their PR firm dropped them. According to this Biz Journal article, the PR firm cited differences on public relations strategies as the reason for dropping them. But the reopening would go on anyways. After all, Amy is not a pale-faced pansy-ass willow. So, how did the relaunch go? The day arrived, May 21st. Things were looking up. According to USA Today, the owners claimed to have more than 1,500 reservations. And the article says that the crowds were thin. And the nearby Pita Jungle restaurant appeared to be drawing more business than Amy's. Ooh, yeah. I think people might have made those reservations to troll, if there were ever any to begin with. But the series of unfortunate events was not over for Amy's Baking Company. May 29th, just 8 days after the relaunch event, ABC 15 Arizona runs a news story about them. Customers had found flies in the drinks that they ordered. But they were not just any customers, they were reporters from the Phoenix Business Journal.
Well, they're allegedly at it again, and this time it's actually in response to 3 reporters with the Phoenix Business Journal who say they found some bugs in their drinks.
ABC 15's Marianne Resendez has both sides of this story.
Starting with the martinis they ordered. The group says Sammy, the co-owner, served up not 1, but 3 drinks with some unappetizing critters inside.
He said it wasn't a bug, it was from the lemon. And so we brought over a 3rd drink, and the 3rd drink had 3 bugs in it.
The group laid out the flies for the co-owner to see and snapped this photo of them. I spoke with both Amy and Sammy, who didn't have time to meet us, but they wanted their story told. Amy wrote in a statement, "We understand that there is a possibility perhaps 1 fruit fly made its way into the martini, but after the 3rd time of being sent back, we felt that it was a setup."
We didn't plant the bugs in there.
So, how did Amy and Sammy respond to the complaints? They kicked them out.
Amy also writes, "We tried to handle the situation professionally and graciously and asked them to leave."
We were very shocked. We're like, we need to leave? Why? Because you have bugs in your drinks, And he still, would not say that they had bugs.
Amy tells the news that it was a setup. But even after being kicked out, the reporters still wanted to try the cake that was praised by Gordon. So they convinced a waitress from a nearby restaurant to get it for them.
Haley and her co-workers did leave, but still wanted to try a slice of Amy's famous cakes. They had a waitress from a nearby restaurant pick it up, only to find a fingerprint in the frosting. Amy's response, quote, "I can only hope for their sake whoever did stick their finger in it didn't double dip, because it certainly was not us."
I might have said that I didn't know how that many bugs could find their way into an alcohol bottle. It is a pretty small opening after all, but I recently started watching Bar Rescue, and finding fruit flies in alcohol bottles is very common on the show apparently. I looked it up, and fruit flies are actually attracted to the alcohol. If you're not careful to close up the bottle, you can get tons of them in there, and it's hard to see them if the bottle is dark or if it's dark colored alcohol. And then when you pour your guest a drink, extra protein. I think that's probably what happened here. Moving on, April 9th, 2014. So the relaunch didn't work, news interviews didn't work. What is the next logical thing to do? Go on Dr. Phil, obviously. I'm not sure if I can show this clip here without getting a copyright strike, and I also want an excuse to do my Dr. Phil impersonation, so Dr. Phil shows several clips from the episode of the pair acting absolutely insane, and afterwards there's an awkward silence, and Amy looks at Dr. Phil like this. Dr. Phil says, I've eaten a lot of places, some nice, some not so nice, but I don't think I've ever had somebody come out and offer to whip my ass. They were all those people you see. They were actors for Kitchen Nightmares, and they were Yelpers. They were not customers at all. My customers, I behave differently with my customers. Okay, now we did a drill down on that, and these people are not actors. No, they are actors, just they want to be shown, and they came just to disturb my life. Well, but you said they're actors. That's not true. No, when I say actors, from the street, when they come just to harass me. Listen, you don't throw gas on a fire. Why take the bait? Because you say it's just editing, but come on. That was an edit, I'm sure, around that, but that was you actually doing that. I did that, of course, yeah. But why do that? You're playing into their hands. What do you want me to do, to bend over? And there's a few shocked laughs from the audience here. No, what do you want me to do then? No, they came to attack us. Well, are those the only two choices? It's either bend over or go on the attack? We weren't allowed another choice. That's why we're here. We weren't allowed another choice. The world was introduced to us in the wrong foot, the wrong way. We were never allowed a second chance. Yes, if someone comes to attack us, we're like snakes. You don't mess with a snake in the desert and go poke it unless you expect to get bitten. And if we bite you, you're gonna go down. What? We're here to fight and stand up for ourselves. My Dr. Phil impersonation just sounds like Mr. Mackey from South Park for some reason. Frozen ravioli is bad. Okay, it's real bad. I'm gonna throw Sammy a bone and assume that what he was getting at was the people weren't actors like they were professional actors, but they were trolls who just wanted to cause problems or get attention or something. But yeah, Dr. Phil is definitely right here. Even if people were trying to troll them, you're giving them exactly what they want when you flip out and act insane. But overall, in my opinion, it sounds like more of the same. We're being attacked, poor us. Anyone who doesn't like us isn't a real customer. Then September 28th, 2014, even more drama from Amy's Baking Company as this video gets published online by TMZ.
It's not worth it. Hey, you're gonna go to jail for the rest of your life. Think about what you're doing. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Piece of coward!
As you can see, it appears to show Sammy walking towards someone off camera with something in his hand that the video title says is a knife. October 2nd, 2014. Sammy does a news interview with KTAR News about the previously mentioned TMZ video incident, and he claims that what he was holding wasn't a knife, but instead just a silver pin. And he claims that he was defending his wife.
Well, I did what I have to do. I'm defending her. I'm still defending her. And I won't let nobody to come to bully her or to even touch her. And you saw the video for what's happened Saturday with that drunk guy. And then I proved how nobody can come and bully us.
A very short clip of the full video was shown on TMZ, and so it once again it portrays you very negatively, but the actual full-length video shows something completely different, and it's astounding. The man charged you clearly on that video.
Charged me, and then after he come after my wife, and this is what he didn't come to eat. That guy, he never ate. I didn't even serve him the water, because normally when anyone come, we give him ice water. But I knew this guy is not going to stay. I'm not going to let him stay because he was very, very, very drunk. And the reason is not because he's looking as a drunk, is the liability. I cannot let anyone who come from another bar pissed off, completely full of alcohol, and then I'm going to take the last one, take the liability. I went very, very nicely, and I asked them to leave.
It wasn't a knife.
Oh, no.
What were you holding?
A pen.
It was a pen.
A pen. I don't need knife for this. I don't need knife for those people. Come on, it's a joke.
I magnified the TMZ video and went through it frame by frame, and the best that I can tell, in my opinion, it does look like it's actually a pen. It's hard to be 100% certain because of the low quality of the camera and the fact that everything is moving, but in most of the frames where I can see a somewhat clear picture of the object, it does appear to have a blunt tip like that of a pen, and as he moves the object around, it maintains a relatively constant width. If it was a knife and the back of the blade were facing the camera, it would appear as a thin line, thinner than what we see here. And when he moved it around and changed the angle of the blade relative to the camera, we would almost certainly see some of the side of the blade and it would appear wider, unless it was a very, very small knife. The fact that the object maintains a constant width as it's changing its angle relative to the camera tells me that it's a cylindrical object, not a flat knife blade. That doesn't change the fact that, in my opinion, they were both acting like lunatics, but details are important. Anyways, Sammy also claims that there's a longer video that shows that the man that he was arguing with actually charged him, but it's not clear to me if the host in the interview actually saw the video herself or if she's just taking Sammy's word for it. And the longer video doesn't seem to be available anywhere online that I could find. In another clip from KTAR News posted on the same day that I assume was part of the same interview, Sammy also made some very serious allegations against Gordon Ramsay.
But the only thing that pissed me off is when he sexually harassed my wife in the kitchen. This is why I went crazy about him. It's the only reason, not because he criticized my wife's food. It's a show.
How did he sexually harass your wife?
Well, Amy can tell you because she's the one who, she can tell you what she's the one who was there. It's 18 months behind us, or even it was 2 years because it was 6 months before they filmed it. They aired it 18 months ago. I think it's the time to forget about Gordon Ramsay, and it's the time for us to go forward. And my wife coming with her cookbook, and we're going straight.
Oh boy. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I make no comment about the validity of those claims, but there were cameras set up pretty much everywhere, so it should be possible to prove if it did in fact happen, I would think. Also, this Eater article claims that Sammy actually sued Gordon for the harassment, but if you click on the link to their other article, it simply says that Sammy made the accusations and there's no mention of any lawsuit. I didn't find any other evidence of any lawsuits being filed either. July 10th, 2015. After 8 long years of service, Amy's baking company finally goes out of business. Kind of a mystery how they survived for 5 years, given how absolutely zealous the hatred against them seemed to be from the moment their episodes showed up on people's TVs. Sometimes bad publicity can help a business make money, but not always. Probably not in this case. That saying, no press is bad press, is bullshit. You can absolutely have press that destroys your business. In all the news clips and reports that I saw, it didn't really look like they were getting any customers. They did seem to be getting gawkers and trolls, but I didn't get the impression that many people were actually spending money. At one point they tried to capitalize on their fame by using the YouTuber's favorite method, unnecessary merch. In my humble opinion, this demonstrates a complete lack of awareness of the situation. There are some people who become memes who are able to make money off of it, but in those cases, people have to like the person in question. My impression of how people felt about Amy and Sammy wasn't that they thought they were funny and liked them. It was more like they didn't like them at all and wanted them to go out of business. But that's just my personal take on it. In the recap episode that Kitchen Nightmares did, Sammy did mention that he had enough money to keep the business open till the quote, stupid people become smart. So I assume that they were probably losing money on the business to keep the doors open in hopes that people would start spending money again. In a later interview, Sammy emphasized that we sold the restaurant. We didn't close it. Look guys, I didn't crash the plane. I just rapidly maneuvered it into the ground, okay? Amy also wrote a cookbook called Baking with Amy, Baking Up Magic at some point, and you can still purchase it today. But unfortunately for you hardcore collectors out there, it's only a digital copy. There is one other thing that I want to mention, and that is a rumor that the desserts that Amy was making were also store-bought. If you remember in the episode, Gordon disliked everything except for the cake. It does seem kind of weird to me that they were buying everything else frozen except for the cakes. Why wouldn't they just buy the cakes pre-made as well? This Dexerto article refers to the cakes as pre-made, but I haven't seen any concrete evidence to back that up. At one point, the waitress from the show, who was abruptly fired for asking, "Are you sure?" did an AMA, and someone asked her if the cakes were store-bought or not. She says that she's led to believe that they are, but can't be sure, which is in no way hard evidence. September 7th, 2016. Amy and Sammy moved to California, and at some point, Amy was selling her cookbooks and taking special orders for cakes online. Then, in 2018, more misfortune. Sammy, who was, I guess, still fighting the same legal battle regarding his deportation, finally lost. Let it never be said that our government is inefficient. As a result, Sammy was forced to leave the US, and he, along with Amy, moved back to here. May 21st, 2021. Sammy and Amy did an interview talking about their new life here and also making new claims against Kitchen Nightmares. If you're wondering about the NDA that was supposedly a problem earlier, I assume it was only in effect for a limited time, but I'm just guessing.
Gordon set this lie for 8 years. He set a narrative that is completely false. Kitchen Nightmares told us they were coming to help us with the only problem we were having, the show live. They really made us seem like horrible people. When Kitchen Nightmares showed up, they took one entire day, turned every single thing upside down. We were used to going to grab something by habit, and they moved everything. I grabbed Sammy. I said, they're going to set us up. Something very bad is going to happen here.
Did they move everything intentionally to cause confusion, or did they just move some stuff in the process of setting up? Could they not just move it back?
They sabotaged Sammy's point of sale system, so we couldn't process any of our sales. I wasn't receiving any of the food orders.
How? Didn't we see them processing sales in the episode? It looked like the only issue was that Sammy needed the waiter to show him how to use the machine, and the kitchen was slow.
The producers had promised us that they were going to bring in everyday patrons, and then I noticed that they were bringing in the same people that had been harassing us online.
So they memorized the faces of everyone who was trolling them on Yelp?
They had a guy, and he kept doing like, where's my pizza? Where's my pizza? And Sammy was being nice to him. And he actually said, why don't you tell your fucking whore wife to hurry up with my pizza? That's all it took for Sammy and I both to start screaming, stop the filming. We don't want to participate in this. We pulled the plug.
But in the episode, we see the guy ask about the pizza, and then Amy mocks him and says, "Where's my pizza?" from the kitchen, and he responds, "Really?" And then we see Sammy tell him in an extremely rude way that he has a pizza coming, and if he wants to wait, then he should wait, but if not, then leave. Amy then hears Sammy screaming and runs out of the kitchen and joins Sammy in telling him to leave. That's a little different than what they are describing, in my opinion. Obviously, there are cuts in the episode, but I'm not sure where that insult could have happened because Sammy didn't tell the man to get out full stop. He told him to either wait on the pizza or leave. And I'm not entirely sure why the show would want to cut that out either.
They portrayed us as being defensive, combative. They made it seem like I couldn't take any kind of criticism. They made it seem like Sammy didn't know what he was doing in the front.
I'd like to briefly mention that in their own submission video for Kitchen Nightmares, Amy did say that Sammy didn't know what he was doing.
And that guy who kept doing like, where's my pizza? It looks like Sammy pushed the other guy, but that's not what happened. That guy pushed Sammy and Sammy pushed him back.
That may or may not have happened, but it's also important to remember that Sammy was physically blocking them from leaving the restaurant and technically, in my opinion, holding them against their will.
They made it seem like my husband and I were stealing our servers' tips, and that is a fat out lie. We paid them hourly, $14 an hour, which in the restaurant industry for a server is a lot.
Again, the claim about we weren't stealing tips, even though they confirmed it in the episode.
They made it seem like Gordon walked down on us. In reality, we are the ones who told them that he had to leave.
I'm fairly confident that when a restaurant agrees to go on Kitchen Nightmares, they have to sign a contract like the one we mentioned before. I'm also fairly confident that part of the contract gives Gordon permission to do damn near anything he wants with the restaurant in the menu. After all, there have been many times where the owner hated the changes and told Gordon as much, but they just made them anyways. It didn't seem like they had any right to refuse. So I think they keep making this claim in a strange attempt to make it seem like they were in control of the situation, even though they really weren't.
Right after the show aired, we would get thousands and thousands of calls. I would answer the phone, you are the worst person in the world, I hope you die. And the phone just didn't stop. We were bombarded with hateful, vicious online posts. I absolutely did respond to people, but the really, really negative things, they were not us responding. The production company illegally gained access to my computer.
Thanks to someone who has helped me, I am capturing someone who is not allowed to be on my Facebook page.
They are the ones who wrote those things, and they did it to create drama. And then I tried to let the world know I didn't just post those things, but by then everybody already had decided that we were these horrible people.
They may have been hacked. There were a lot of people who wanted to shit on them, but I find it highly unlikely that the producers or anyone associated with Kitchen Nightmares hacked them. And she doesn't provide any proof that they specifically were involved. She shows a screenshot of what looks like a record of the IP addresses that have accessed the account, and it looks like some of them accessed the account from LA and some from Phoenix. but I actually looked at the time difference between the LA access and the Phoenix access, and it's about a 6-hour trip from Phoenix to LA according to Google, and there's more than 6 hours difference between the accesses from different locations. In other words, the owner of the account could have accessed the account from Phoenix, then drove or flown to LA, and then accessed it again. Also, we don't know what year this recording is taking place in, but in that AZ Central article I mentioned earlier, it said that LA was where Amy and Sammy moved to in 2016 after they left Phoenix. So they could have been out there house shopping and accessed the account from there. This is all just my personal speculation, of course. We can't say for sure if any hack occurred, but I see no evidence to support the claim that Kitchen Nightmares hacked the account. Also, I noticed that the tab down there says kitchen contract. I wonder if she was looking over it again to make sure she wouldn't get sued by Fox.
In 2015, we decided we wanted to take a break. We sold our restaurant.
We sold the restaurant. We didn't close it.
And then we moved to California. I created a cookbook. I sold my cookbook and I became a master cannabis baker. And I started a full line of edibles.
And that was legal?
Yes, I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't legal. We had been fighting Sammy's immigration case already since 2008. Kitchen Nightmares, they put like a spotlight on us, and we had to go to immigration court and be told that we were being deported the day after Kitchen Nightmares aired.
Why is the government trying to deport you, sir?
He had to pay over $250,000 to immigration attorneys. He lost all of his appeals. In 2018, he was ordered to leave America, and he did. And I followed him. We live in a beautiful town and we're getting ready to open a bakery downstairs.
It was a dance studio.
I really have been working on becoming a master baker and I create digital content.
But that is the latest update we have about Amy and Sammy. They seem to be living their best life in another country, and it's unclear if they ever did open that bakery. But before we go, I want to take a look at a few more interesting things regarding this episode. I want to mention a controversy that happened with a different reality show on PBS, and the incident that started this whole shitstorm before Amy and Sammy ever went on Kitchen Nightmares. The episode of Kitchen Nightmares was filmed in December of 2012, and it aired on May 10th, 2013. But after it was filmed and before it aired, Amy's baking company went on another TV show on PBS called Check Please Arizona. The show basically has some judges go to different local restaurants and try the food. From what little I've seen of the show, it seems like it's less about critiquing the food and more about highlighting good restaurants. Apparently, there was some controversy because according to this Phoenix New Times article, the Check Please Arizona episode's 3 diners make no mention of lengthy wait times or impossibly irate owners, nor do they register a single complaint about the dishes. A little punch would have been nice, one diner says, referring to her mushroom crepe. That's about as negative as it gets. They describe the restaurant as charming and comfortable, and the pastries as incredible. Even the red pepper ravioli, the same dish Gordon Ramsay said smelled weird and declared it to be one of the most confusing ravioli dishes I have ever seen and tasted in my entire life, gets a winning review. One diner calls it a wonderful combination, sweet and spicy at the same time. Delicious. The episode in question is Season 3, Episode 6. But unfortunately, despite my best efforts, I couldn't find anywhere where you can watch that episode. This raises the obvious question, did Kitchen Nightmares exaggerate how bad the food was? Or was the PBS show just a fluff piece that wasn't really willing to be critical of the food? I can't say for sure, but I'm surprised that Amy and Sammy haven't brought it up in any of the interviews I've seen of them to try and argue that they were misrepresented. That's a way more convincing argument to me than all the other stuff they said. But finally, I want to take a look at the incident that started the nuclear disaster, the Chernobyl, the 3 Mile Island of reality television that was Amy's baking company. According to this article, it all started with one bad review. One single review started the entire thing, and I found that review. Let's read it. In retrospect, I should have known better than to step foot into Amy's Baking Company, aka ABC Bistro. 8 p.m. on a Saturday night. 3 tables are occupied. A sign on the door indicates they're looking for an experienced line cook, a dishwasher, waitresses, you name it. Pita Jungle, just a stone's throw away, is packed to the gills. These are all bad signs. They go ignored, however, because I'd eaten one thing all day, and I had drove here to try their pizza. Never, ever again. The waitress brings me out a water and a menu to my table for one on the patio, which I had all to myself. Browsing the apps, I was pleasantly surprised to see several things priced $3, which seemed like a bargain given the high price of everything else. $3 tapenade sounded like a good deal, but I was informed that it didn't come with anything. It was $3 extra for bread. Since I was solo, I decided to skip it and instead pay $14 for their 12-inch margarita pizza. About 3 minutes later, the waitress drops off my pizza. "Your pizza," she says, leaves a plate, and off she goes. I sat there for a moment confused as to how things happened so quickly. I tried to grab a slice of pizza, but it was so blazing hot that I wasn't even going to attempt to handle it. I waited for a few minutes to let it cool off, only to discover that not only had it cooled enough to handle, but it was actually well cooled and most likely reheated. After a closer inspection of the pie in front of me, it was evident that it had been reheated, as there were smaller tomatoes that had spent their time in the oven, and larger tomatoes that had barely been kissed by the heat of the oven. I took a bite and was immediately underwhelmed. The crust had very little character, was slightly sweet, but had that store-bought quality to it. The pesto tasted okay, but the tomatoes were completely tasteless, and overall it just fell flat. It's margarita. The ingredients need to shine to make such a simple pizza. These ingredients were subpar. After 2 small pieces, I decided I was wasting my calories and just gave up on it. So I sat outside not eating and sat. Where the hell was the waitress? I glanced inside a few times hoping to catch her eye, but she must have been occupied elsewhere. The owner comes out. "How'd you like your pizza?" Instead of immediately responding, I asked how it had come out so quickly. In short, he told me another table had ordered it, decided they didn't want it, and it sat in the kitchen for 2 minutes, who in turn decided to send it out to me since I didn't order anything else. Me. Well, it didn't really taste fresh. Him. No, our pizzas are the best. Ask our customers. You're the first person since we've opened ever to not like our pizzas. He got very defensive about the pizza, but I hadn't really launched a harsh criticism on the pizza, just said I didn't really enjoy it. So I sat some more with an empty drink and realized that they wanted me gone. The owner wouldn't make eye contact with me, the server never came back out asking if I wanted something else, and they still hadn't refilled my drink. So I sat on the patio alone and decided to have a smoke. The waitress comes out. Her. "Sir, there's a no smoking sign over there. I was told to tell you not to smoke here." Me. "Is this the last f*** you in this experience?" Her. "Yes, I think so." She walks away. I walk inside, pay the bill, and leave. No apologies, no discounts on the bill, nothing. $18 for weak iced tea and shitty pizza. This is arrogance in its worst form. I can forgive bad food, but I cannot forgive misplaced arrogance and the blatant dismissal of a customer, whether you agree with them or not. Perhaps the sign on the door should also say, "Wanted, new owner." I cannot for the life of me recommend this restaurant to anyone. Now, admittedly, personally, I think he was maybe a little bit harsh about a few of the things. Maybe my scale for bad service is broken after watching the Kitchen Nightmares episode. But how did Amy respond? Like I said before, the way to handle this sort of thing, legitimate or not, is to take the high ground, act mature, and don't let your feelings get hurt. Here is Amy's response. "Dear Joel L., it is blatantly obvious to me why you were alone on a Saturday night. Read any of the reviews that have been written about us and you will see that everyone loves us. The only people that don't is our competition. We knew you had been sent by another restaurant before you even ordered your $14 pizza." Good God, what is it with these conspiracy theories? The pizza was fresh and amazing. The reason the tomatoes had different texture was because I used 3 different heirloom tomatoes and some of them are sun-dried. So of course they're going to have a different texture from the fresh ones. But perhaps you were only accustomed to tasting the ones that come fresh from the can. Moving on to the store-bought dough comment. Please, my dough is made fresh every day from 100% organic ingredients. Perhaps your palate is not sophisticated enough to tell the difference. As for you having the patio all to yourself, unless you have been living on another planet, it is summertime in Arizona, moron. Only tramps and losers want to sit outside in 110-degree temperatures. We are hiring because we are so busy that we need to hire more people. You just so happened to come in right after a huge rush. And the people did not change their mind for the margarita pizza they ordered. They were still enjoying their amazing Caesar salad, and I thought perhaps you would appreciate not having to wait so long for your pizza, which was just coming out of the oven. I am the chef and the owner, and I am the one that made your pizza. As for the no smoking comment, everyone knows that it is against the law to smoke within 20 feet of a public place. But perhaps you think you are above the law. Have a little respect. Not everyone wants to subject themselves to being around secondhand smoke. And as for the overpriced menu items, if you think the $12 is too much for an entree-sized organic salad, or $14 is too much for an amazing pizza, then perhaps you should go to the Pita Jungle that is just a stone's throw away. And if you get lucky, maybe you can even dig up someone to take with you so you can share a $5 falafel. Do us a favor and keep your ugly face and your ugly opinions to yourself and go back to the restaurant that you really work at. I would love for anyone who reads this review to come to ABC and try our pizza. If you don't like it, then I guarantee you don't have to pay for it. Ooh. Honestly, when I read the first guy's review, I thought he was overreacting to a few relatively minor things. So the food wasn't great and the employees were a little inconsiderate. Fair enough, writer reviews saying so. But he was really overdramatic and made it sound like it was some huge deal. If Amy had just ignored that guy, I think he would have looked like the bigger asshole and this whole shitstorm might have never started. Well, actually I take that back. Something probably would have set them off eventually. And the last thing that I want to leave you with are some of the best reviews from Amy's Baking Company, some from this article and some that I found myself. By the way, if you go to their Yelp page, it has a warning on it saying that they had to disable the comments because people were trolling so hard. I brought a package of Putney Pasta 3-cheese ravioli, my favorite pre-made ravioli, to Amy's Baking Company and they were able to heat it very well. This is the best tasting food I have ever eaten in my entire life. I could eat here for every meal of every day. It is that delicious. Amy is also the most beautiful and inspiring person I've ever met. She is so nice and treats all of her employees very well. This is definitely a real customer and absolutely not Amy and Sammy from Amy's Baking Company. So this is going to seem strange and unbelievable, especially with all the hate Amy's Baking Company has received. The food, in particular the sweet and spicy andouille pizza, was actually pretty good. My concern was the state Sammy, one of the owners, left the restroom. The guy you can see images of online came out of a stall directly before I did. He gave me this awkward half smile. The odor he left behind was, by far, the worst I have ever encountered. It smelled like a dying animal. He also left a little toilet paper in the bowl unflushed. Oh my god. I could hear his half-assed hand washing too. The sink ran for less than 10 seconds. It literally made me sick to my stomach. I will not be returning. I really understand why my review would be seen as a troll. Honestly, I don't care if you don't trust me because they already get the hate they deserve. And that is the story of Amy's Baking Company. In my opinion, the owners turned one single negative review into the worst PR nightmare that has probably ever befallen a restaurant. Their continued belief in the delusional idea that they are victims who are being attacked by Redditors and Yelpers, and their continued insistence on fighting back and refusal to admit wrongdoing turned the public against them and probably sealed their fate. Who knows? Maybe if they had left that first negative review alone, they would still be there in Arizona selling frozen ravioli. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.